What's up, family? I'm the guy that showcases and promote African-American businesses operating here in the greater Phoenix area. Please help me further support these amazing entrepreneurs by not only supporting my YouTube channel or following me on Facebook, but also stop by their businesses and give them a little economic support. My name is Shaka Shabazz, and this is African-American-Made. How you doing today?
I'm doing just great, sir.
Thank you so much for this opportunity to talk to you. Very excited about this interview. You have such an amazing story, and your contribution to the organizations that you've been involved in is just phenomenal, and I'm glad to talk to you today. Won't you tell me your name and the name of the organization?
Okay, my name is William Pankey. I go by Bill Pankey. The name of the organization is Dream Smart Behavior Solutions and Platforms to Brilliance.
I want to say that you came from humble beginnings, and how you got into education and excelled in education. I think that would be a very inspirational thing for all of us. Won't you tell me your background and how'd you get into education field?
So actually, the fact that you mentioned that is important because I come from humble beginnings. I grew up in the projects in Stamford, Connecticut, in public housing in Stamford, Connecticut. My dad was a janitor at night and painted housing during the day for rich folks. Most people, when they think of Stamford, Connecticut, or Fairfield, Westchester County, they think about Martha Stewart and the people that live there, okay? But they don't realize there's public housing there. And as a matter of fact, I grew up in public housing and was able to go on to boarding school and then to a prestigious university. And so, humble beginnings to fulfillment in life in terms of helping people develop.
That's amazing. Now, you mentioned boarding school, and where I'm from, you don't really hear the term boarding schools too often. What was that experience for you like, and how did you get into the boarding school system?
Okay, so boarding schools are probably better known, especially in terms of the East Coast. Some of the better ones are there. You've heard of Exeter, Andover, Choate, Hotchkiss, New Hampton. They're all in that little kind of Lakes region area of New Hampshire. Matter of fact, what's become famous now is Brewster Academy, because if you play basketball or watch basketball, Donovan Mitchell went to Brewster Academy there. How I got involved was my mother actually read about a program called ABC in Time magazine. And she asked me, would you like to do this? Now, what's a kid 13 years old know about going away to boarding school? I said yes. I said yes because I thought it was a good opportunity in terms of academics. As it turns out, that's exactly the case. I went there, did well, and then ended up going to Telstra University, which is probably one of the top 50 schools in the world.
Wow. And so, you had to have been an exceptional student as well as a child, because I could imagine that the selection process is probably arduous.
I excelled prior to going to the program, and that was part of the reason that I was chosen, because even in 7th and 8th grade, I was already taking calculus. I taking algebra, I was taking French. I was doing well in school, and that's how I got identified.
So in boarding school, what subjects and what experience did you have in boarding school made you better prepared to go on to college?
Actually, it was just the courses that were available. I actually took, I was really strong in math, so I took honors algebra, honors geometry, honors algebra 2, trigonometry and calculus and probability before I went to college.
Okay, great. And from there you went on to college. What did you study there?
Majored in economics, but that was by accident. I didn't really know that much about applying to college, about going to college, because my dad, like I said, 8th grade education. My mom finished high school after her 3rd child, which is after me. So they didn't know about college, and so it was up to me to figure it out. And so that's why I chose business. I thought I was choosing business, but they didn't have a business program at Tufts. It was a liberal arts school. They had economics. I had economics in high school, so I chose that and did extremely well in that.
Okay,
And I
great.
chose it for the quantitative reasons, because I didn't want to write long papers and dissertations and stuff. And I know that if I take a test, after 2 hours, it's done. It's not like you got to spend days writing a paper.
Yeah, I can totally agree with that. I definitely struggle with that myself. A lot of long nights trying to hammer out a paper. So from college, you got into, where did you go from college?
So graduating from college, I actually walked into the Career Service Center at Tufts probably in April. I mean, that's really late in terms of looking for a job. I wasn't really looking for a job. I just happened to walk in, and they chose me to go be as part of General Electric's training program, manufacturing training program, which is, in hindsight, it was a good deal because there are a couple of major training programs. Usually it's manufacturing management, which was GE. If you wanted sales, you go to Procter & Gamble or Xerox. So I got in the program just by accident.
Okay. And so let's talk about how you stepped into the fields that you eventually went into that helped other children develop and realize their goals.
Sure. I mean, so I went to work for GE, and I really liked the experience. I didn't get a graduate degree because they told me if you get the GE's training program, you don't need to. In hindsight, that wasn't necessarily good advice, but it allowed me to do a lot of good things. So I spent 7 years at GE in manufacturing management. And part of what I did there was I put in production control systems. And I got hired by Teradyne, which is a high-tech company, to put in a production control system for their printed circuit board shop. Spent time doing that. And I actually went into banking for a while. I really thought that'd be a perfect job for me, okay? Just based on my background in terms of economics, et cetera. But I did commercial credit, I hated it. I actually got recruited by a guy named Walter Murray to come work at Inroads, and I actually fell in love with it. I actually took a $20,000 pay cut to go work for Inroads, but it was the best experience of my life, and it prepared me for a lot of other good things.
Okay, let's talk about Inroads for a moment there. What was your role there, and how did it help the people that came through that
So
program?
my role there, he hired me to put together a training and development program. So the training and development program, actually, so the students got into Inroads because they were already good. They interviewed well. And so when they went to the company, they did well. But we actually provide them the soft skills on the weekend. So they work 35, 40 hours a week. Then on a weekend, we provide soft skills in terms of communication, speaking, listening, dress for success. All those skills that made the complete person excel.
Okay, and how many kids came through that program?
We had about 200 students every summer, of which at least 100 of them were new.
Okay.
Because you got the graduating seniors, you have the people that for some reason didn't fit as well. So we had 100 new students every year, so a total of 200 students.
Okay, and how long was your tenure there?
Probably around 20, 25 years.
Okay. Then from there, you embarked on another opportunity. Talk about that.
Actually, what happened was I moved to Arizona. I came out here one March, and it was 80 degrees. Now, if you're from Boston or the New England area, you still might be getting snow in March and April.
Yeah.
You come out here in March, it's 80 degrees. I mean, I came to visit my sister, spent a couple days, liked it, ended up spending a week, maybe 2 weeks. I went back to Boston, sold my stuff, sold my place, came on back out here.
You were sold, huh?
Yeah.
Now, for you, what are some of the major cultural differences between living in a place like Arizona and coming from a bustling place like Boston?
Well, I think the difference is that Boston's a college town. I mean, seriously, you might have 25 schools and some of the best schools within a couple miles of each other. You know, you got Harvard, you got MIT, you got Tufts, you got Brandeis, you got Wellesley. I mean, just a bunch of great schools and a bunch of great students. And so it has a lot of life to it. I come out here and I live in the South Phoenix area. I'm not near a university, and I thought I had died. I mean, seriously, when I was in Boston running inroads, my phone rang all the time because a student needed something, needed to have information.
Yes.
I can't get out here, and I'm looking at my phone. I'm wondering, did I pay the bill?
It doesn't ring.
Right.
So in transitioning out here to Arizona, what were some of the things that you did to acclimate yourself in the community and, you know, establish relationships?
Well, the first thing I do, I had to figure out that I hadn't died. You know?
You kept checking your pulse?
Oh, yeah, I kept checking the pulse. But, you know, I connected with Annette Yates. She actually owns Satay. That's a pretty lively entertainment place. So I had that. But I was really more interested in education.
Yes.
And when I talked to some of the young kids from church, I'm talking to them and shaking their hand. I said, "How you doing?" And the first thing they do, they look down at the ground like, you know, they're on a plantation. So I figured I had to do something about that. And I wanted to start with a younger, I mean, having worked at Inroads, I thought everybody was like an Inroads kid. Mm-hmm. You know, the fact is that's an elite population to some extent. So I wanted to help more people. So I started a robotics team because I wanted kids to have a hands-on learning experience. And I did it outside the school system because I wanted to be able to choose the kids that I wanted. You know, within the school systems here, you know, it's large Latino and large white, but very few, a smaller number of blacks. So starting outside the school system allowed me to choose Latino and black kids to develop.
Okay, now, in having that experience where you are talking to young kids and their mannerisms and their behavior is kind of one of how I would say, like, unassuredness, probably
lack of confidence.
Lack of confidence, perfect word. Lack of confidence, and your experience with actually building kids, right? What were some of the things immediately came to mind that you felt that you could do to help address that?
Well, I look at developing the whole person, okay? So if you start out with the younger kids, you have an opportunity to, you know, teach them how to go about life. I mean, for instance, I have a great nephew. He plays basketball, and his mother actually sends out a piece about, can you contribute to Cam's basketball thing? I said, yes, I will, but he ought to have enough sense by now. He should be doing sending out thank you notes, etc. So you can teach young kids that at an early age, as opposed to waiting later in life to do that. You can give them opportunities to present. In terms of robotics, it's perfect because, you know, first of all, I was interested in the sciences and business. So if I'm teaching kids science and stuff, applicable ways in terms of robotics, I think that's a much better way to do it than rather lecture at the kids. And my goal really was, Arizona's 48th in the nation in terms of education. And my goal, one of the things I realized after my research was they actually have 3 of the best high schools in the country. So 3 out of 100, that's 3%. They're punching above their weight. So my goal was to figure out how can I get kids developed such they have an opportunity to go to those kinds of schools.
Okay, and so you pretty much built the program from the ground up to address what you thought was something that needed to be addressed.
Yeah, well, the interesting part is people say, well, you're an economics major. What do you know about robotics? I didn't know anything about robotics. I found another person that was an engineer and knew about robotics, and we formed a team. I actually raised $10,000 from inroads of lumber around the country. So I raised the money, he did the teaching.
Okay, okay. And so you ran that program for a while, and
About three years before the pandemic hit.
oh yeah.
And then so what I did was, they had offered, a school came along that was interested in having my program come inside the school, but we didn't have money to build the school up like we wanted, so we have another program called Dream Smart Behavior Solutions, where people can take assessments to find out who they are.
Okay. And talking about DreamWork assessments, what is your role in that company, and how did you get involved in it?
So my role is really business development. So I do business development for them and for Platforms of Brilliance. And it's easy for me in terms of business development because I know senior executives throughout the country. My students are now senior executives also within those companies. So basically, I call them up and tell them what we're doing and invite them to take the assessment, invite them to actually have their companies use the assessment as a development tool.
Okay. Now, in what type of areas would this assessment be appropriate?
Anywhere where you're trying to have a high performance person or a high performance company.
Okay.
Why it works is, I didn't take the assessment until I was in my 70s. And I took it and they said, well, do you think that's you? It was exactly me, but it was allowing me to put a label on it in terms of I came out as an initiator and creative. Mm-hmm. And that's all my life I've been creating programs. For instance, when I was at Inroads, I actually started a club to teach young people how to invest in stocks. So even there, they have more money invested outside of the club than they did within the club.
Okay. So let's dive a little deeper into the assessment program and talk about, you know, what are the traits that are outlined in a person taking that assessment?
What we're really looking for is, what are your superpowers? What are you passionate about, okay? And so there are actually 10 different areas, 10 different superpowers, and they range from an initiator, influencer, strategic strategist, stylist strategist, which is what you are. There is the facilitator, there's the engager, community builder. So as you're doing the assessment, we'll tease out what your superpower is. Mm-hmm. Once you understand your superpower, you become a lot more confident about who am I.
What are some of the other tools a person can take away with that as they go on in their life, right?
So once you understand who you are, like for me, I'm not a person that likes a lot of detail. That's just not me. I want to get something started and move on. A person who likes a lot of detail might want a job a data analysis job, or might be in terms of a solid thinker, a person like you. You're good at the video stuff. You're good at understanding the detail and how to make stuff look good. Mm-hmm. Okay, a person like Annette, my partner, I mean, she's good at understanding people. And so you find those roles for yourself that allow you to succeed. And once you start succeeding, your confidence goes up and it just fits. And so we say we like to put the right people on the bus in the right seats.
Okay. So can this also be a tool used for like employers to maximize their workforce?
Very much so. Matter of fact, we work with several large companies, whether it be Procter & Gamble, Frito-Lay, Coke, Intel. And why they come to us is because they want to make sure that the people are passionate about what they're doing and they become high performers. And so we use this tool to help them understand their people and have the people understand themselves and put them in the right places within the companies.
Okay, so how long have you been a part of Dream Smart?
I've been with Dreams Smart Behavior Solutions. They actually formed the company probably about 4 years ago, and I've been there since the beginning.
Okay, okay. And where do you see the company going from here with the success you've already achieved?
I think initially we were working on creating coaches to become fluent in terms of teaching, but we're going in a different direction in terms of we're working with institutions to help them become high-performing institutions and high-performing individuals within those institutions.
Okay, now, for a person that's not really sure what their strengths are, what's the process for you in sitting down with that person and going over what you assess?
So what we do is we have them take an assessment. The assessment is about 15, 20 minutes. It tweaks out their superpower, okay? And then we go over that assessment with them to have them understand why that's them and ask them if they agree. And 99.9% of the time, they're saying, oh, that helps me understand who I am.
Okay, so you beat me to that. I was going to ask you, do you get pushback from people who look at the assessment, the results of their assessment, and say, that's not me, you know, or maybe in their mind they feel they're another type of person. Have you ever had that conversation with a person?
Well, usually that comes out if you're doing a personality test. Mm-hmm. Ours is behavior, okay? It's how you operate under pressure, and I can think of maybe 1 or 2 cases at most, and I've done thousands of them, where the person says, no, that's not me, but when we go through it with them, they understand, yeah, that's me.
Yeah, because I'll speak for myself. Sometimes you kind of think you have strengths that you really don't have, superpowers that you really don't have,
right? Or
you have behaviors that you really don't have, or not quite accurate, you know.
Or you think they're not.
Or that, right. So for a person that lacks confidence, and I know you don't do the building part, you just kind of explain what their results are. But for a person that's kind of struggling with, you know, be it in business or in school or just in life and period, with nailing down their capabilities.
Well, so you nail down your superpowers, but you also begin to understand what your weaknesses are, okay? Or what your areas of development might be, okay? But I still wouldn't encourage someone to go into a position where that's not their strength. You can work on development, but focusing on your superpower is a much better path to success.
So what would you say to a person that's already in a position or already has a certain type of business that they really don't have the skills for, but I mean, they're in it, right? Do you suggest to them to kind of work on development in that area? Or if they're like, I guess if they were failing in it, then maybe you would suggest some alternatives.
Well, first of all, if you're passionate about what you're doing, that's a good sign of your superpower. Okay. If you're struggling, it's a good sign that you're probably in the wrong position. You might even be at the right company, but the wrong position. So what we do is help you figure out what your strengths are and what areas might work better for you.
Okay. Now, how strong is that passion versus coming to the realization that this is not me? I mean, in other words, do you have a hard-headed person who says, you know what, nah, this is where I'm at. I want this. Not good at it, but I want this.
Well, I'm not going to tell anybody exactly what to do.
Right.
I'm going to encourage them to look at some other areas. I mean, if you put me in a company, an engineering company, right? Okay, and you're going to have me do programming, but I'm not paying attention to the detail, I'm in the wrong job.
Right.
I might suggest, well, Bill, looking at your profile, based on you to be an initiator and stuff, you might want to look at sales.
Yeah.
Okay, and try to get you to look at those areas that work with your strengths as opposed to worrying about your struggles.
Okay. And the struggle will equate to an unhappy experience, right?
Yes, it will.
Lack of performance and things
Yeah,
like that.
I mean, put it this way: when I was at Tufts, I took a Fortran course, programming course. There was no way in hell I was going to do well in it. I didn't know that at the time, but I know it now. Because if you put a comma in the wrong place or put a semicolon in the wrong place, I mean, the program's not going to work.
Yes.
So how many times am I going to have that program fail before I'm thinking I'm failing?
Yes. Good point. Very good point. So you take the assessment. I took the assessment, and I learned some things about myself that I didn't really think about, right? But it did help me in looking at it on paper and saying, oh, okay, and making connections with, my past experiences and roles I've had in the past and how I did in those roles and how well I did and how well I didn't do.
Or you might have struggled in some of them.
Where I struggled, exactly. So it's definitely helpful to, what type of person would you suggest taking that assessment?
Everybody.
Everyone, in any walk of life, right?
Everybody.
Yeah.
And it works best if you're around the age of 18, your behavior really doesn't change, okay? You might improve some areas and stuff, but your behavior is going to be the same. I mean, that's why we like the behavioral assessment as opposed to personality test. I mean, I took the MBTI and, I was an introvert, ISTJ, okay, which is introvert, sensing, judging. I very much wanted to be an ENTJ because those are the popular people.
All right.
Okay, but that wasn't me,
Yeah.
But when I took the behavior solution, I understood this is really me. I mean, most people that take it realize, oh yeah, that's me.
So would you say that for a successful person who takes an assessment like that and they kind of start following the track of what their assessment says, they're less stressful in their life because, if you don't really know and you're a perfect example, say I'm really, really an introvert, but I've spent my professional life or personal life trying to be that guy, the gregarious guy that comes in and everything kind of falls off mark, right? You don't really know why, like you're never really hitting the mark with people. Then you take this assessment and it says, well, this is the reason why, because you're really this kind of person. Focus on these strengths.
Superpowers. When we started this interview, you said, well, I want you upbeat and excited. I mean, that's really not who I am. I mean, if you interviewed Annette, okay, my partner, she's upbeat.
Which I have.
she's upbeat and exciting.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give you the facts.
Yes, yeah.
And ain't a lot of fluff. This is it. This is how we're gonna do it.
Yeah.
Let's go. And it's worked for me. I've done extremely well in career-wise, and I've done a really good job in terms of developing people. I mean, if you talk to one intern actually said, well, they call me Mr. Pankey. Or Mr. P. Mr. P, you're like a savant when it comes to this stuff, because that's what I do. I mean, that's what I eat, sleep, and dream this stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
If I wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, I might have a video on YouTube looking at personal development.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I enjoy.
Yes. Well, I will say this: you are a very funny man. You do have jokes for real. So
dry sense of humor.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of the things that you observe just generally in the work that you've done and in developing people to be. Basically, what I see in you is that you develop people to be the best they can be, whether it's in their profession, through organizations, or what have you. What is it about it in your life that made you want to focus on that and be your life's work?
The truth is, I didn't know. I grew up in Stamford, Connecticut, and Stamford is a commuter town where the rich folks, corporate executives, get on the train and go to New York. okay? And that's what my dad wanted me to be, because he painted houses for the rich folks. He said, those are my boys, you go do that. Now, I did have an opportunity to go down and work in New York, but I hated New York, okay? Had no interest. When I found out I was good at working with people, I got excited. Life just seemed to open up for me, and it just became easy.
Who would you say, in your experience, are the easiest to work with? Youth or young adults or older? People that, when I say older, I mean people that are kind of like down the line in their career.
Actually, to me, the people easy to work with are people that are curious, open to try new things, and that a lot of times you look at that as youth, but older folks are like that too. But like my ex-mother used to say, you bend a twig while it's young.
Okay, that makes sense. I mean, for many obvious reasons, we as a society, we focus on the youth. But as you go through life, you're constantly reinventing yourself, right? So what do you say to a person that's along in their life and they hit an impasse, you know? Maybe they were successful in their career and they still hit an impasse. What would you suggest to them to kind of realize themselves or to step into another venture?
I'd ask them, are you open? Are you curious? Would you be interested in taking the assessment, and let's go over it to see where that might lead you.
So would you say that that assessment would be kind of like rebuilding, if you will, like you're just starting from the basics again? And you know, I mean, philosophically speaking, I mean.
I'd say begin to identify what your superpowers are. You know, because once you understand that and you build around that, I think life becomes a lot more fun. I mean, there are many very successful businessmen, they're miserable.
Yes.
Because they spent their life chasing money as opposed to chasing happiness.
And if you've spent your life chasing money or chasing the tropes, and you find yourself not happy, do you find that your experience is often contributed to not doing things that are indicative to who you are in your superpower?
That's the basis of it. It really is. If I can get somebody to take the assessment and we sit down and talk about it, I mean, and people do things because they have to. I mean, if you think about it, I was chasing my dad's dream, about being down on Wall Street. That wasn't who I was. I mean, I was successful at it, but I wasn't happy. Once I got involved with inroads in developing young people, understanding what that meant, life became fun.
Life became fun, yeah. So, stepping out and redefining yourself can be a very scary proposition when you talk about a person like, it's not always a prestigious job that you're in. It's not always a career that you found a lot of success in. It could just be a job that you're in that you're miserable about. And like you said, you need to pay the bills. You
got a family.
You got a family and things like that. What would you suggest to a person who takes that assess and is in that situation and they got to balance that? Starting to look at doing things that are within their strength and balancing where they currently are.
Right. So it's going to show up. I mean, matter of fact, for me, like when I was involved in banking, you would think that that's a perfect job for me. I'm an economics major, good at analyzing stuff. You would think that's perfect. I hated it. I mean, it was probably the worst job I ever had in my life. Okay, I was fortunate enough to be coaching a young kid, and another friend of mine saw how skillful I was. He recommended me to the director of inroads at the time. The guy hired me. I took a huge cut in pay, but it's probably the best thing I could have done in my life, and it's led to all kind of great opportunities.
Now, what type of uncertainties were going, if there were any, in your mind at the time making that transition? I'm about to take this big cut, but I feel like this is.
Well, that's the uncertainty, the big cut in pay. I mean, think.
But you crossed the hurdle. You decided to make that decision.
I decided to try it.
Yeah. Now, so.
I'm also a risk taker.
Okay.
You know, and so I could look at my factors, okay, because when you take the assessment, there are about 8 different factors they look at in terms of whether you're daring, whether you're cooperative, whether you're trusting. Look at all those factors and put together a plan for myself.
Do you find people that take this assessment say to you, I didn't see myself that way, or I never saw that in me? Like you say a factor, right?
Yeah.
But they really are, but it's based on what your assessment is, but they don't view themselves as that.
They hadn't looked at it that way.
Yeah, right.
Okay,
Yeah.
and so most of the time when they take it, and we're about 91% accurate, okay, and they realize, oh yeah, this is me. No, I understand. Okay, the 9% that don't. There's some degree of uncertainty within that, but even they agree that, yeah, this is probably more like me.
So most people are sold on what
Yes.
you know,
It's behavior, not personality.
Right.
Like I
now,
said,
do some people confuse that initially
Most
when you
people
have
do.
that? They do. Okay.
Most people do.
Okay. And how do you break that misconception with them?
Go over the report,
Okay.
item by item by item, and have them really look at and think about it. And most people realize, oh yeah, that's right. Oh, that's why I was successful in my last job. Well, that's why I didn't like the last job.
Okay. All right. What sort of advice, if you will, or wisdom you could give to a young person today stepping off into either the workforce or just in life in general? Because you have this whole wealth of knowledge, be it in education, performing these assessments on people. You really understand people because you deal with them on that level. What are some of the things that you would impart to a young person stepping out in the current climate that we live in now, you know, with modern technology and things like that?
Be open, be curious, have great relationships around you, because basically you're gonna figure out one way or the other. Okay, the other is through failure.
Yes.
You know, but that's not a bad thing, because sometimes my best lessons will come through failure.
Yes.
Okay, but don't be bullheaded. Don't be bullheaded. You know, just be open. Let's try a few things.
Okay. What are some of the differences you find today? And you did, well, I don't know if it's a difference, but it's an observation you made that kind of gave you some ideas about how you could address it, the person looking down and what have you. What are some of the other things you see, and it doesn't have to necessarily be a youth, it could just probably be what you observe in people, that you think they could benefit from some of the things that you've embarked on to help people? What are some of the other traits you've noticed in us? The negative stuff.
The negative, well, I think, you know, if you study psychology, most of the time people understand Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where you start with survival and self-actualization comes at the top. If you really think about it, the world is changing so fast now. I mean, my cell phone now has more power than 20 years ago the large computers had.
Yes.
Okay, and so you got to be open. You got to be open to that. I read a lot. I encourage everybody. Reading is fundamental. You know, if you don't read, you might be in trouble. But also think about it as the triangle being upside down. Nowadays, it's really about creativity's at the top, curiosity's in the middle, and knowledge is ubiquitous. You know, so if you're always trying to get knowledge, it doesn't matter, because you can go to Google and say, hey Google, what's the square root of 3? And it's going to be 1.782. You don't have to think about it. The knowledge is there. The question is creativity and curiosity.
It's very funny you brought that point up, because I was having a conversation with someone recently regarding that exact thing. I mean, you and I having a conversation about something about history, something that happened in history, and I say to you, man, it happened in 1960. And you say, no, man, it happened in 1962. And then we just turn to the phone and say, Siri, when did such and such happen? Oh, it happened in 1973, and we're done with it. As opposed to back before, we would dive deeper, right? We would triangulate. We would, look at different sources. We'll actually study the thing. But now we just get the headline and we just get the blurb and we move on. That's not learning. That's not education. That's just collecting information.
It's just available.
Yes.
But if you're curious and you're using that whole creativity stuff, I mean, liberal arts schools are there for a reason.
Yes.
Okay, that's where you learn the critical thinking skills.
Yes.
You develop those. Work on your creativity. Then I think you have a real good chance. I mean, a lot of kids nowadays, their favorite place is YouTube, because you can find anything you want. Right?
Yeah. Now, I would venture to say that, because I know we always lean on the youth with that, but almost every other person I know leans on that. The age range is spectrum is, from older to younger. I kind of feel like, and you can kind of, educate me on this. Those of us who grew up in the age where we had to do those critical thinkings, for most of us, and really diving in, our knives are getting dull because of the new technology, because we're using it too. I mean, we're engaging in that behavior too with the technology. So do you think that, I guess my question would be to you, do you think that for people who grew up in a different time that are utilizing the current technology, are our tools becoming dull because of that?
I don't think so. In my case, because I'm so curious, I'm always trying to learn some new stuff, okay? Mm-hmm. And everything in Google or YouTube is not 100% correct.
Right.
So you got to have some critical thinking skills to figure out, well, does this make sense?
Yes, I totally agree with you. Where do you see this company going in the next 3 to 5 years? What would you like to see? Where would you like to see it progress from here?
Well, I'd like to work more on the institutional stuff and individual stuff because you want I personally want everybody to be a high performer, okay? Working at their maximum potential, okay? You want a corporation to be successful, okay? Which means getting the right people on the bus in the right seats. Mm-hmm. Okay, this tool allows us to help companies and individuals do that. Matter of fact, speaking of being curious, I'm on the way to LA next week for a high performance workshop. Because, like I said, I live and breathe this stuff. This is my life.
So, do you see companies in the future utilizing these systems more?
Yes, no question. I mean, there's stuff out there that we are just beginning to think about. I mean, I was in Vegas about maybe 2 years ago, and I called Uber. They want to know, okay, do you want a self-driving car? I said, yeah. Next thing I know, the car pulls up exactly where I was. I get in the car, takes me to my hotel, no driver, no nothing. Now, if I talk to some people, they said, no, I wouldn't do that. Oh, but the truth is, now they got flying cars, flying taxis that you haven't even heard about yet. Or think about the semi-trailer trucks driving down the road. Those are automated now, and they're going to be much bigger. The issue with that is, it's actually safer for self-driving cars if everybody had one.
Okay. So you've done all these amazing things, and I can see your enthusiasm about working with this project and this company, and how it can be so beneficial to other people. What do you see for yourself at this point going forward?
Staying curious.
Staying curious. I love that. I love that. What would you like people to know about you, besides your stoicism and your?
I think if you talk to me long enough, you realize I have a lot of knowledge, and I'm willing to share, and willing to help people develop. That's key to me.
Well, I've learned so much from you in the short time and that I've known you, and I feel like my life has been more enriched by talking to you and getting to know you. So I thank you for the impact that you've made on me.
Thank you.
To this point, and we only recently met, so I know the sky's the limit.
We got a lot more work to do.
Yeah. I thank you so much for your generosity and your time too. It's really been a blessing for me. Mr. Pankey, thank you so much for this opportunity to talk to you and sit with you. It's really been an honor, and I look forward to being part of some of the great things that you got going forward.
Yeah, we got some more great stuff coming, trust me.
All right.